Awesome morning, absolutely wonderful afternoon, and exciting, excellent evening. This is Carla from Rehan Allahwala's World of Connections. And today I have the privilege of speaking with David Orban, who is known as in my mind, as a futurist, and he's going to tell us about what he sees happening in the future. And I am so excited to hear what he has to say. Like always, this show is sponsored by the Institute of Peace, which is an online organization promoting peace one conversation at a time. And I do want to mention that David was born in Budapest, Hungary, and he is now in New York City. I'm not sure how he got from Budapest to New York City, but we're going to find out. David, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, Carla. Thank you very much for having me on your wonderful show, and I am looking forward to our conversation. And I am also looking forward to the feedback or the questions that we may receive from our live audience. Uh, my background is in technology. I studied physics at university, then started working in AI, artificial intelligence, in startups that I created, built, and scaled both in Europe and in the United States. Currently, my interests are in various areas of technology. My current role is that of the managing advisor at Beyond Enterprises, which is a strategic advisory firm specialized in blockchain technologies. I have always been fascinated by the future, even if the label of futurist is something that I don't personally use because it always appeared to me to be a bit too theoretical rather than practical. I do like when entrepreneurs or professionals or people who are just interested in the world um, realize that we can have a very practical impact in changing the world in a desirable direction. So I cherish the relationships and the opportunities to connect with those people who are looking at the way that the world evolves, not only from a theoretical point of view, but with their action and with their desire to move it in a positive direction.
Okay, this is very futurist was probably not a word that I would normally use. I was searching for a great word to say who you were. When you're looking at the future and you're looking at technology, how do you see things? Let's start with now. How do you see things now? There's so much change, and so many people are using technology now.
Uh, in basically every uh, place you could look at in the world, the reason why what you just said is true is because um, during the life of any individual, uh, the impact of technology will be visible. This wasn't the case necessarily in the past. As a matter of fact, practically everywhere, two, three, 400 years ago, if you said, okay, I'm a farmer which would have been statistically speaking the most likely situation. Or I'm a soldier, I'm a priest, whatever is your role in society, however you live your life, you would not be able to see a great amount of change during your life. Even though already during what in Europe was the Middle Ages, or in other parts of the world hundreds of years ago, changes were indeed accumulating. So today's world is characterized by a degree of change that is visible not only within or between one or two generations, but within the life of a single person. And these kinds of changes that we are seeing, whether in the way we communicate, whether in the way that we understand the world and we accumulate and then spread this understanding across many groups and act on that understanding, implementing new solutions to the challenges that we are seeing around in our lives, in society. Well, the consequence of these abilities is to increase the speed of the change itself. And that has profound consequences on how to live, on how to organize society. And for me, it is very interesting to understand what are the consequences of these changes in how society is organized and how to live a life worth living.
Okay, in today's world, I can talk to you wherever you are in the world. If we look back 10 years ago, we couldn't do that. Maybe via email, maybe a little through Facebook. But most people, when you look at it, they look at Facebook for their friends and family and do not connect with people they don't know. How do you feel this is growing? And how do you see it now, the changes that are happening in the world?
Ray Kurzweil and Peter Diamandis co-founded Singularity University, where I was part of the group designing it 14 years ago at the NASA Research Park in California. Singularity University looks at exactly what you are describing, how technological change is accelerating. And they use a great example in describing the power of this change. Today, everyone can afford or should afford the purchase and the learning needed to use fully a smartphone. Whether it is a relatively more expensive iPhone or a relatively more inexpensive Android smartphone, the power that gives in the hands of anyone in the world is immense. And the way they characterize that is through calculating how much it would have cost. Let's say that it is $1,000. Would it be $10,000 or $100,000 10 years ago? Would it be $1 million 20 years ago? Would $1 billion be enough to concentrate the power in a form factor that a smartphone today has 30 years ago? Is it true that no amount of money would have been able to give a person the power a smartphone has 40 years ago? That is the transformation that we are seeing. So it is definitely possible to ask oneself, what is the power that the same $1,000 worth of technology is going to concentrate in the hands of anyone or everyone 10 years from now? And that power is going to be astonishing if looked at with today's eyes, similarly to how it is almost inconceivable how powerful these tools are today if we look at them with the eyes of someone from 30 or 40 years ago. Many of these powers are going to come from things that already exist today. Some will be breakthroughs that are difficult to anticipate, and as a consequence will be totally surprising. And even those who label themselves professional futurists will, if they are honest, admit that they didn't expect that kind of development. But some of these features are already visible today. For example, we already have very, very powerful AI functions in these phones. Some friends of yours using whether WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger or other platforms send you long audio recordings. And when it happens to me, I always reply, I won't listen to the recording. Rather than using the microphone on the screen that you used to record your audio message, please shift your finger to another microphone very close to the one you picked. That microphone will enable you to speak just as you did to record the message, but your phone will transcribe it as text instead. That magic of speech to text recognition and transcription is done by artificial intelligence at a level of fidelity and precision that is wonderful. And of course, as a recipient of the transcription, it enables you to just skim and stop on what matters, rather than investing the 2-3 minutes of your life that otherwise would be required to listen to the audio recording. This is a simple example of how artificial intelligence is already in these devices. Other already existing features are how they are able to recognize and interpret the world for you at an increasing degree. Already it is possible to point the camera to so many things, and the camera of the phone will tell you what you are seeing. It could be, for example, the menu in a foreign language that you don't speak of a restaurant. Or if you don't point the camera, you point the microphone. The phone will help you conduct a conversation with another person when neither of you speak the language of each other. This just happened to me about a month ago in Dubai, where I was at a conference, and one of the participants was a gentleman from Vietnam, and he didn't speak English. Well, I don't speak Vietnamese either, but we were able to just put the phone on the table between us, and he would speak in Vietnamese, and I would hear what he was saying in English. And then in return, I would reply in English, and he would hear what I was saying in Vietnamese, and we were able to have a conversation perfectly from one to another. So
You're
these are ways that already our tools give us superpowers, and during the next 5-10 years, these features will improve tremendously, and recognizing them and learning how to use them today gives these superpowers to anyone on the planet.
That is amazing. You mean I could take my iPhone and speak to someone in Japan who doesn't speak English, and it will translate for me immediately?
That is absolutely correct. Now, whether these functions are part of the phone as you take them out from the box, or you need to download and use an app, is not particularly relevant. In the
Oh,
case of the example that I gave, the app that I recommend to you or to others who are listening is Google Translate. Google Translate on the phone has a conversation feature, and that conversation feature is what does exactly what I described, right? So it does require just a little bit of proactive searching, installing, learning, in order to be able and leverage these superpowers. But I don't think that is asking too much.
no.
The curiosity that should drive each of us in order to discover and adopt what is already possible is the fuel that enables us to take advantage of these things, as well as those that will come in the future.
That is fascinating. So, if I wanted to have a conversation with someone who speaks Spanish, I could actually do that using the phone.
That is correct, yes.
And does it translate pretty accurately?
So each of the steps that are required has a certain error rate. And one of the steps is recognizing your voice and accurately transcribing it first in English. And then the second step is going to be to translate from English into the target language. First you said Japanese, then you said Spanish, makes no difference.
Right.
Uh, and vice versa on the other side. And you, as well as your conversation partner, have to be just a little bit patient and just a little bit adaptable in forgiving whatever mistakes there can be. But the benefit of being able to conduct the conversation at all will vastly exceed any cost of a little bit of repetition or asking, sorry, can you rephrase that? If there are mistakes that make it hard to understand what the other people was saying. The same thing happens sometimes even when we speak the language. Let me actually give you another example. I like having comfortable conversations. And when I am in person together with someone and they tell me, hey, why don't we meet at this place, at this bar, or there is this party, I would like you to come and meet some interesting people. I often wonder whether the conversation will be comfortable or, given the noise level of a party that can be greatly enjoyed if you want to dance or drink, but less enjoyable if you want to have a conversation, will be such that I will not have fun. And oftentimes that is the case. That happens. I don't know why, but even conference organizers or people who put together events where they want the participants to have enjoyable conversations will choose to have a DJ blasting music at a volume that defies the purpose, unless I misunderstand the purpose. So here is another AI miracle. These are the Apple AirPods, right? And once again, the make and the model matters relatively little. If you use them in a very noisy environment, you can actually use the phone as a hearing aid.
You're kidding.
Even if you have no degraded hearing, you are not deaf, you are not hard of hearing, you are just simply in a very noisy environment. And when you do that, it will be wonderful because you can relax, you can lay back, you can concentrate on the other person and what they are saying without straining yourself. And it will be visible because the other person who is not using this kind of little technological magic will have to lean close, and they will go like trying to read your lips, and they will strain themselves, and they will shout, and you don't need to. And this kind of technological enhancement to your normal human faculties is going to be widespread, universally spread. Here's another example. Not only you can enhance your hearing, you can enhance your eyesight. I don't know if it ever happened to you, but it happens to me quite frequently that across the street or looking down a fourth, fifth, or 20th story window, there is a sign or there is just something that I want to see. Well, even if you have 20/20 eyesight, there are going to be very natural human limits on the resolution of your eye. But the cameras on the phones today are such that if you point your phone to the thing that you want to see, and then with your finger live, just not even recording, not even shooting a picture, just pointing the camera, you stretch your fingers in order to have the phone zoom on the thing, well, you will be able to see and read, for example, a label or a script, whatever is that you want to read, that unaided you wouldn't be able to read, right? So all of these features are already in this piece of magic that most of us, and hopefully all of us, have. We just have to learn to use them at their maximum potential.
It's almost like people know it's there, but they're not letting others know we can do this. I mean, I had no idea. I don't like going into crowded places to have a conversation because there's just too much noise. But when it's in a quiet place, I will have a good conversation. You put me in a quiet place, in a noisy place, I totally shut down.
Yes, and these are just humble current examples. So, as an exercise for our audience, think of other features, other senses, other ways that you perceive the world, and imagine how either today or tomorrow these tools are going to help you understand the world faster, at a deeper level, being able to act upon it more powerfully, and ask yourselves, are we there yet? If not, what are the steps that are likely to be taken in order to bring us to that level? And it is going to be exhilarating to
Yeah.
see an increasing number of people taking advantage of these tools in their daily lives.
Well, when you look at education and people, this is a normal child, this is an LD child, this is an EMR child, it drives me crazy because instead of looking at the child or looking at the person who is being educated, they put someone in a box, and that box limits the person from dreaming, oh, I can't do this because I can't read fast enough, or I can't multiply because no one taught me how to do it. I taught a very young child, well, she was in seventh grade, maybe sixth grade, who was labeled educably mentally retarded, to multiply 3 digits by 2 digits without a problem using, well, in that case, we were using a times table chart, but still, that was a type of technology. So, how can we help educators realize that education is not just reading a book and spitting it out? Education is learning, adding skills to your life. I hope that question is clear.
So the educational system that we have today has been um, designed for the needs of a very specific age, um, the age of industrialization, when it has become necessary and useful to be able to impart a given set of standardized skills to a growing number of people. Before the industrial age, there was very little need for a large percentage of the population to learn more than the minimum necessary in order to be a good farmer, right? Only a very small set of the population would need to learn to read and write in the particular classes and professions, whether it was a priest or a certain group of tradesmen and so on. So during the Industrial Revolution, we designed our schools, our classrooms, our curricula, our way of looking at different sections in the educational process, including still existing remnants like the summer break. The summer break actually was born out of the need of the families to have the children go and help collecting whatever was growing on the fields. And during those summer months, even those additional hands of the children would be necessary. And then when the crops were collected, well, they could go back to school. Today's world has a very different set of needs, and it represents a very different set of opportunities for the people who want to take advantage of them. I think that the first and one of the most important components is that um a more personalized path is available to anyone who wants to take advantage of it. This path does not rely or depend on a standardized set of skills and learning objectives. And the tools that make this possible are once again available to everyone. Whether these are YouTube videos, whether these are courses on Udemy or whatever other platform, whether it is participating in Facebook groups of peer learning, other people who are equally passionate about some subject. And the other important component of today's learning environment is that it is not limited to a given age. It is not that at age 10 or 15 you've got to learn one thing, that age 20 or 25 you've got to learn another thing, and that age 25 magically you stop learning, you put down the books, and from then until retirement age you are just depending on the skills that you acquired until that time, and then at retirement age you remove yourself from society and wait until you die. The opportunities that today are available for acquiring and deploying useful skills are there for the taking for people at any age, any and every age, including the opposite, which may sound a little less comfortable. The value of the skills that anyone acquires at age 20 is going to be close to zero by age 30. I am talking about very practical skills in terms of how to use a given tool, or how to use a computer or a browser or a given platform. There are skills that are ageless. How to be able to communicate your ideas, how to listen to another person, how to work together well in a team of diverse abilities and skills complementing each other, being dependable, being on time, being reliable, being accountable. These are absolutely ageless skills, and unfortunately, very few school programs are even attempting to be explicitly imparting those skills at any age. But whatever new technology is on the horizon, it is very likely that you will be able to acquire the skills supported by that technology or required by that technology on your own, as a self-starter, as an individual who is passionate about and curious about that particular field, and that you will be able to do that outside of the traditional schools. And I think that is beautiful because it levels the playing field. It really enables anyone everywhere in the world to say, wow, what David said about AI is really fascinating. I want to learn more. And there is nothing and no one that can stop that person to learn more about AI. And then after a few months to say, this really resonates me, I want to keep going in this field. Or, well, I now think had enough, Now I want to learn about blockchain or about quantum computing or about um, space technology, and then see what works, what is valuable, what can become not only an issue of passion and hopefully talent, but it can become the basis of economic value creation.
That's so fascinating because we think of school and the kids come to school and they learn whatever, but we don't. What I see in education is that we're not developing human values. We are not developing the person for who the person is. We're just developing, oh, they need to be able to multiply. They need to be able to read. Well, maybe they don't want to read about what's being taught in school, but they're interested in art and they want to learn how to draw a figure, a person, or they're interested in AI and they don't know. I mean, what you told me, I never knew existed. And we don't teach the children or teach anyone to develop their interests. We just teach them, oh, learn to multiply and learn to do algebra, and you'll get through life forever. I never learned algebra well. I mean, I got through school, but I never learned it. What do you have to say about that?
Uh, well, there are certainly a growing set of skills that are really not only necessary but useful in order to be a productive member of society. If it was definitely possible 1 or 200 years ago to get by without being able to read and write, today it is a necessary skill. And there are other skills that are becoming necessary if we want to be a productive member of society. If someone today says, yeah, I am very good at writing with pencil or pen and paper, but if you ask me to type on the phone or using a keyboard with a computer, I'm really not only not comfortable, I really don't want to do it. That is a choice that can severely limit the opportunities of a person. Learning how to use a computer, learning how to use a smartphone is something that schools barely touch, if at all. But these are today skills that are a basic requirement in order to open doors to many other possibilities. Now, I would like to add an even more radical component to what I said, answering your previous question around education and learning. What I started with is to say that a personalized path is available and possible to anyone. What is missing from that is that a lot of people, even though they are passionate and curious and they are self-starter, have a doubt about how many false starts and dead ends they can afford before they are forced to pick something, even if they know it is not optimal. The simplest example of that is, yes, Father, I will follow your path. You were a successful baker or lawyer or doctor or whatever, and your example and your request is something that, as an obedient son or daughter, I will heed. And that is basically the assumption that we can afford no level of experimentation, no degree of finding out what is really our calling. The second approximation is, oh, I sign up to this school to study, I don't know, biology, and then I find out that I don't like it, and I switch to something else, and then I get a degree in that something else, and then I'm done. That is gonna be the second thing, my profession. So if we take the first and the second together, I think we describe 80% of the people, maybe more. Very few today feel that they can afford to test more than one or two things before they are forced to settle, before they have to say, okay, I am done, I cannot afford to try more things. But already today, and even more so in the future, not only the experimentation of dozens of different possible paths are going to be possible, it is going to be the norm, and we will have the tools that make this kind of experimentation enjoyable, efficient, supported by society, encouraged by society. We will go back in some sense to what used to be the most exclusive way of learning, of personal tutors available only to a few in the noble classes of feudal societies, where one-on-one teachers and tutors would be available to the princes and princesses, so that they would learn about ancient Greek and Latin and whatever skills they were deemed to have to know. Or even further back to the Socratic peripatetic school, where the literally handful of students of Socrates and Aristoteles would walk around and talk about philosophy and talk about the world and spend time refining their skills of thinking itself and their ability to think about thinking. This is going to be the norm. This is going to be supported by AI-based tutors, by AI-based teaching assistants that will have very powerful skills in assisting the exploration and experimentation that each of us will greatly enjoy in order to find out what resonates with us, what we can be extremely passionate about, and that corresponds to our talents, and that is valuable to our community, so that it can be deployed usefully around us.
I love it. I really do. I feel that education has been lost by standards. And when you lose it in standards, you begin to lose what it's about. Do you feel that teaching children or teaching adults about human values is just as important as teaching the skills of reading and writing and math? I know it's needed, but it's also teaching people to act as a good citizen.
Definitely, and I already mentioned some of the soft skills that I believe everyone should acquire even before attempting to label themselves a professional and presenting themselves to a company or founding one. I mentioned accountability, reliability,
Right.
dependability, the ability to work in a team, recognizing and complementing each other, and so many other things. Reasoning, reasoning about reasoning, dialectic, communicating, expressing and formulating ideas, both verbally and in writing. Um, Acquiring new skills is a skill. The curiosity driven by a specific set of objectives. Um, all of these are, and many others, extremely important and constitute the soft skill set of an active, participating member of communities. And the the fact that if any, just a very small fraction of the time in any school curriculum is dedicated to these is certainly a failure. But it will be recognized and corrected because schools need and desire to survive. And so they will adapt. They will recognize that teaching facts is a waste of time. Wikipedia is available to anyone to learn about facts or whatever search engine, Google, or whatever will substitute Google in the future. One of the most fascinating features that Google introduced some time ago, and many of us greatly enjoy, is that when you formulate a search as a question in a complete sentence, not only Google will surface the right paragraph that answers that question, but right after the paragraph, it will list additional questions that you could decide to ask. And when you click on one of them, a new list will form. So you will be able to keep exploring, clicking question after question that Google prompts you in an exploration that is itself already very personalized, but also driven by a purpose of understanding a particular subject. And this is already the starting point of the kind of Socratic conversation where the questions are leading to unexpected surprises, which are new questions in turn.
This has been fascinating. I agree with you in education, and I'm so strongly passionate that I keep asking about it because education is not being met today for the student. And it just angers me so much. I have kept you a longer time than I expected. And I think we should come to an end. But will you please tell me what you want the audience to go away with?
Um, I understand that for a lot of people, what we mentioned seems removed from their day to day concerns. However, I would like everyone to realize that the tools and the power that these tools give each of us are immediately available and in our hands. The only thing needed is the first step to understand them and take advantage of them. They are really the basis of superpowers, and
Yeah.
we have them at our disposal. Um, some people suffer from what is labeled learned helplessness. They believe themselves to be less empowered as they truly are. They believe to be subject to forces that they have no control over while they do. So, what I invite the people who followed us until now to do is to believe in the possibility of taking advantage of the tools that we already have and experiment, get their hands dirty, look into little details, be inspired by the example of others who are not necessarily more privileged or lucky than they are, and they can be a source of inspiration and example. And then, as these active listeners of ours learn the skills or discover the tools that we mentioned, happily share that learning with others as well around them in their family, in their community, in their society, using the tools that you are employing, Carla, like these live streams, but in many other ways, because there is also joy in sharing what you learn and helping others acquire these superpowers that are in today's world available to everyone.
It's been such a pleasure to talk to you, and I want to do more of this because you're fascinating and helps people realize that this little device has so much power. And you're actually carrying around a complete education in your pocket. You can check anything. I used to hate it when Rehan would say to me, YouTube it or Google it. But now I look at it and yeah, Google it is much better. Having said that, I really want to thank you for speaking with me today. And thank those who have watched and Rehan for making the connection. And just talking to you has been a great inspiration. I want to remind everyone, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to thank you, Carla, for having me.
It's my pleasure. It's all mine. And I want to thank Rehan's Institute of Peace for sponsoring this conversation. And can we wave goodbye, but don't go anywhere? Can we all wave goodbye? And we'll see you later. And we